Welcome to Sparking Everyday Discipleship, where we disciple parents to disciple their children with everyday discipleship every day, sparking important conversations with our kids. I'm your host, Terrie Hellard-Brown, and we're so glad you've chosen to spend some time with us today. Today, our guest is Kristin Wynalda. She's been on the podcast many times. We have lots to talk about. We both love books, we love kids, and we love helping them learn to love reading. Kristin has a website called Big Books, Little Ears that she isn't still working on because of AI and some different things that have happened. But her wonderful articles and blog posts are still there. And I highly recommend checking out her website because she has a lot of good ideas and a lot of good advice. That's why I love having her on the show. She has lots to share, and I think she's brilliant, and I think you're going to enjoy hearing from her today. Today, we're flipping the script a little bit. She's going to interview me about what's going on because this is our 300th episode of Books That Spark and Sparking Everyday Discipleship. We changed the name partway through, but we're on our 300th episode of podcasting, and we're so excited to be here, and we're excited for the future. And Kristin was asking if she could interview me for this episode, so that's what we've done. So let's jump in and join the conversation. Today we have Kristin Wynalda with us. It's been a while. I'm so glad to see you again.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here for this special occasion.
We're going to flip the script a little bit today, and she's going to interview me for our 300th episode. We thought it would be fun to just talk about all things discipleship and sparking everyday discipleship. So take the lead.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. So I would say my first question in honor of a big anniversary like this is if you could introduce yourself, how would you want to introduce yourself now that you've done 300 episodes and are perhaps a different person from way back in the beginning when you started this podcast journey?
Well, that's kind of true. Yeah, I thought I would just do it for a short time, and I found out I love it. So we've kept going. We've changed our name and everything. Well, I usually introduce myself as Terrie Hellard-Brown, a podcaster, speaker, writer, and missionary. We are getting ready to return to the mission field, so I get to wear that hat again. Those are usually the adjectives or the titles I give myself. But the podcast being now called Sparking Everyday Discipleship was a hard decision because we had Books That Spark, and we focused just on interviewing authors and talking about how we can use the books we're reading with our children to open up important conversations. And that was the focus of that. But then I really wanted to gear in, focus in on discipleship. And so we started a second podcast, Everyday Discipleship Every Day, which was a super long name. But there were a zillion other podcasts called Everyday Discipleship. So I couldn't just use that. And that was really fun, interviewing missionaries, pastors, different authors, and really focusing and digging deep into what it means to be a disciple and how to disciple other people. But then that was too much, and I was burning out because it was a lot of editing and a lot of recording. And I thought, this is just too much. So I talked to one of my coaches and prayed a lot, and we decided to combine the two. We still interview a lot of authors, and we're still big into talking about books that spark important conversations. But we try to dig deeper into discipleship because it's just so important. Everything we do as parents, everything we're doing in our churches should be coming back to that one thing, discipleship, and helping each one of us grow in our faith.
Yeah, I love that. I'm excited to get a front row seat as you carry on and hit all these big milestones. I look forward to 300 more episodes.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. So with that in mind, now that we know about what you do now, what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were little?
Well, when I was in second grade was the first time I wrote a poem, and I wanted to be a writer. That was my dream. I wanted to be a teacher and a writer. And then as I got older, I took a class in sociology and psychology in high school. It was one semester of each. I fell in love with sociology. And I thought, okay, I want to be a social worker. And so when I went to college, I majored in social work. Well, emphasis in social work. It was psychology and sociology combined. Then I got my master's in education, and I became a social worker for a short time and realized I was going to burn out quickly because it's a tough job emotionally. I was offered a job as a teacher, And that was it. I walked in the classroom and thought, this is where I belong. I taught for over 30 years altogether, including homeschooling. And then my dream all along through all of that was to be a writer. And I've written, for anthologies and different things, magazines and stuff over the years. But now to just really focus in and be a writer, it's like, to me, a dream come true, because that's what I've always wanted to be.
That's great. I love that. Isn't that interesting? The path you took
Yeah.
to get there. So, thinking about the podcast and how it kind of led into this new writing journey, what are you most proud of on your podcast journey so far?
Oh, that's a really good question. It's a really hard question. I love that, especially with so many bookstores closing, especially during COVID, the main thing I hear over and over again is that this is a real ministry to writers, that they can share their story, share their heart. And that's one thing we really focus on is when I talk with a writer, I want to know what their calling is, what their why is. Why are they writing these books? What do they hope they will add to someone's life? You get to hear the hearts of the writers and how they really want to touch children's lives, especially with the gospel, and encourage and inspire people. That's really been awesome. I love when I've talked with the pastors and different ones, and again, seeing their hearts of what God is doing in their lives, what they hope God does through their lives, and just seeing how God is moving in our culture. As we've done these interviews, you start to see a strand of what God is doing. And I've seen it in the podcast world as well. Since I began my podcast, I've helped at least two others start podcasts similar to mine. And actually, they have a bigger audience than I do, which I don't think is fair. But they're amazing. They're phenomenal. And they're talking about discipleship as well. They're talking about helping our children find books that give them life and teach the truth and draw them closer to God, rather than the so many books out there that just don't do that. That's been really cool to see how God is moving, calling families, churches back to discipleship and the focus in that. I just see it over and over again. So that's been cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. I like that. I did not know that you've helped other people launch. That's
Yeah.
interesting. A little bit tied to that, so thinking about you helping other people launch, tell us a little bit about behind the scenes of your podcast and anything you would want your listeners to know, or someone you want to shout out if you're like, this person makes it all possible.
Well, I have to give kudos to my son, Ryan. He's a senior in college in California, and he helps me edit. When I was first starting out, I edited everything myself. In fact, when I first started, I did not know that there are transcription bots out there. I would transcribe my own interview, and it would take hours and hours to transcribe. You think of the old days when the secretary would have the dictaphone or whatever, and they'd play, type, 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 rewind, play, type, type, type. That's what I was doing. It was insane. And I thought, I can't do this. If I've got to keep doing this, I'm going to lose my mind. And someone said, haven't you heard about? And they gave me the program they used. And I'm like, oh my gosh, in like 2 minutes, the whole thing is transcribed. And you have to go through and edit, but it's amazing. Well, now the program I use is all in one. It records, it does a transcript, it does show notes for me. I have to just check everything and edit to make sure, because it is AI type stuff. This is one time I love AI because it saves me hours, literally saves me hours each week, and saves my son hours each week. Between the two of us, we can get a show put out in a couple days if we have to, but we try to work ahead. So that's part of it. You have these great conversations and these great interviews, and that takes, maybe an hour at the most, where you're chatting and talking. And then you have the editing, and the editing is just a part of it. It's the reality of it, but it takes a long time. But the fun part about editing is when we get tongue tied and say silly things, or like one person I was interviewing was like, wait a minute, can I try that again? She took another run at it. We just edit that out, and that's awesome that we can do that. I get tongue tied a lot, and we have to take it out. And all the ums and uhs, we take a lot of those out. And I'm a heavy breather. So we take out a lot of the breaths because with my asthma and my allergies, I'm always, you can hear me breathing. It's really terrible. So I take that out. I always think when I do live teaching, where I go and speak somewhere, that they're like, man, she breathes loud. I don't hear that on the podcast. That's the magic of podcasting, is you can take care of all those little things. So I don't know if there's anything else. Let's see. I do the graphics and get that all put together and do the blog post. It's just a lot of steps. When I went to outline it, because my daughter was going to help with the editing at one point, I started outlining all the different steps, and it was like she changed her email for the podcast to 99 million things or something like that. Because there are so many steps when you're outlining each step of doing a podcast. But I don't want that to discourage anyone who wants to do a podcast, because it's awesome and you can go through many of those steps quite quickly. And if you get a team helping you, I have one friend who records, hands it to her team, and she's done. I'm like, that's my dream someday.
Yeah, that makes sense. It kind of
Yeah,
ties. I was going to ask you what the most difficult part of podcasting and the most rewarding part were, but you
well,
kind of
yeah,
answered it. It sounds like the editing is the most difficult.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
One time we had, oh, I haven't edited it yet because we had storms going on. And in the middle of the interview, I don't know if hers cut off or mine cut off, but one of ours just shut down. And she just kept talking because she didn't know if it was recording or not. So then we came back, and by the time our internet came back on, we couldn't remember what we were talking about. So we couldn't just jump back in seamlessly. So we started again, kind of with a question, and went on through the conversation, got cut off again, came back in. I mean, when I go in to edit this one, I've been putting it off for the last couple of weeks. It's going to be a bear because we're piecing together this insane conversation, and it's a very heavy topic. She deals with people who've had trauma. It's not like a happy-go-lucky, fun little interview. This is some heavy stuff. I want to get it right. It was like we were being bombarded with obstacle after obstacle that day. Even when I started out, I mispronounced her name. We had to re-record that. I mean, it was just one of those nightmare interviews, not because she's terrible, just because of technology and everything else. So that one's going to be a bear, and I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah, that sounds hard. Hopefully none of the ones I've been on, you've been like, oh, it took me 30 minutes to get all the ums out that Kristin
Nope.
kept saying. Well, there, I just did it. I just said How do you come up with all of your podcast ideas, especially now that you have pivoted and hit 300? Because now you've talked to a lot of people. So
That's
how are you
true.
coming up with your ideas?
What's really cool about having a podcast this long is people start reaching out to you. They know what your podcast is about. And so if they have something to talk about or they have a book, they will reach out to me. Then I can decide if it fits with our platform and what we're trying to do, and reach back out to them and talk to them. It's been really good. I haven't had to go hunt down people, because that's really hard. You never know if you're going to have to go through a publicist or through an agent, or, I'd really like to have some people on, and it's just too hard to get hold of them. There's this one author, I love his books. He doesn't even have a website. I have no idea how to reach him. So I haven't been able to contact him. This happens. The ideas come as I'm just thinking about discipleship and what we need to learn, and what I've learned from being a missionary, what I've learned as I'm discipling my own kids. Even now, they're adults, but you're still having an influence in their life. And it's different now that they're adults, but it's still there. They still call and have questions. So you try to think of how you could make that an episode that would bless someone else. Because if I'm having questions asked of me, other parents are having the same thing. Then you look at the culture and all that's going on in our culture. One of my friends has 3 daughters who've deconstructed. And so I wanted to talk to her. How does she get through the day? I think if 3 of my children walked away from the faith I would be a puddle on the floor. How would I find the hope in Christ and keep holding on, keep praying for them, and not try to make it worse by getting in the mix and trying to preach at them and that kind of thing? How do we walk that tightrope? Many times as a parent, we're walking tightropes with our kids as they get older, whether it's faith or something else. We're walking a tightrope because we don't want to be overbearing. We want to parent with grace, but we also have our convictions and our beliefs. And how do we walk that? I knew that's something we all need to talk about. So those kinds of things pop up as ideas. That's where they come from, is just life, living life. I go to homeschool conventions and other like MomCon and different ones where I talk to moms and dads all the time. And they come up with questions, really good questions. Then that becomes an episode a lot of times.
Yeah, life is long. So there's
Yeah,
always more to talk about,
that's
more
for sure.
problems to solve.
Yeah.
Have you had any really like aha moments while you're interviewing someone?
Oh, yeah, lots of them. I think some are just where the word of God just becomes so clear with what they're saying. It's like, oh, wow. I just never thought of it quite like that. That happens a lot, even when I'm reading the Bible, just, seeing it in a different light than I'd seen it before. There was one really great one, a recent episode with Leanne Mancini. We were talking about discipline with kids, and she just laid it out so beautifully. The one interview, I can't remember if it was her or it was another lady that I interviewed. I can't remember who said it, but they were talking about how, I think it was Leanne, we don't want independent children because God never called us to be independent of each other. We want to have mature children who are responsible adults, but we're still connected. We don't want them to walk away and never talk to us again and be so independent that they don't need us and we don't need them. Sometimes we talk as parents about our kids being independent, and we need to rethink that. I thought I hadn't really thought about that, but that's true. The Bible has the concept of community at the very core of it, of relationships and community. And we need to keep that and value that and still have an input in our children's lives until they're not with us anymore. We're not with them. We don't want to cut those ties because in America, we really have an attitude of independence, of everybody's an individual. And that is true. But if we take it to the extreme, we wind up outside of relationships, we wind up isolated, and we know that isolation can often lead to destructive behavior and a feeling of just depression and hopelessness. We're seeing that as like an epidemic in our culture. And I think we need to call back our culture to community and to relationships. And I thought that was really profound when she was talking about that.
Yes, that's an interesting reframing of
Yeah.
that idea. That's neat. Is there an episode that you've gotten the most listener feedback about? So that was your aha moment. Is there an episode that people have clearly had their own aha moments about?
There's been a few where I've gotten several comments. I can't remember which ones. I'd have to look. But they usually are ones that I'm like, yeah, wasn't it a great conversation? Because I really enjoyed it. And I mentioned Leanne Mancini. I have good responses from her interviews because she's just brilliant. Elizabeth Urbanowicz from Foundation Worldview, her interviews are just phenomenal. I may not get comments on the show notes, but I'll get comments in person about those interviews because people are like, yeah, that makes sense. So those really are good. They're thought provoking. And then you just have the ones where they're like, this is such a great book. I'm glad you recommended it. And they've just enjoyed a book. And that's always fun.
Yes, those are always my favorite comments when someone's like, "Oh, you steered me correctly."
Yes.
We like that. So, speaking of books, why don't you tell us about your book?
Okay. Gee, that's such a hard thing. Well, I have to start with the one that's coming out now. There's one that's en route right now to my house. I can't wait to get it in my hands. It's my second picture book, and it's called Izzy's Notebook, and it's about forgiveness. And a little girl learns what that really means. It's the beginning of a series. It's the Harper and Izzy Best Friends Forever series, Learning to Live the One Another's. Each of the books in the series are tackling one of the commands we have, love one another, forgive one another, bear one another's burdens, all those verses in the Bible. There's like 100 of them or more. So we have lots to work with. Izzy and Harper are best friends. The cool thing is there's two of us writing it. The other writer is Nicole Monroe. She's in my critique group, and she had written this great picture book manuscript, and I had written my manuscripts. I had several, and she had a couple. And we were reading and critiquing them, and they had the same feel to them. And both of our characters are about the same age. And I jokingly said, they need to be best friends. Well, that sparked a whole thought process. For a couple years, we talked back and forth about, could this happen? So we've made them best friends. She's writing the Harper stories. I'm writing the Izzy stories. And they have brothers, and we're going to have some chapter books dealing with their brothers. We're hopefully also going to have some board books that feature the younger brother, Harper's younger brother. We're going to make it a whole series, and then we're hoping to also write a devotional for parents or for adults dealing with the one another's as well. So we have a long-term plan for this whole series. I'm just so excited because this is the first book out, and I have been working on this book for a long time. I just love Izzy and Harper both. They're just such cute characters. Forgiveness is such an important part of our Christian life and a healthy life, period, whether you're a Christian or not. Our culture tries to make forgiveness a selfish thing. I forgive you so I don't feel bad, and so that I don't let you control me because I'm angry. And that's part of forgiveness, but that is not the main thing with forgiveness. Forgiveness is sacrificial. Forgiveness is truly recognizing that what someone did was wrong, not saying that it was okay, but letting them off the hook and letting God deal with them and however he feels he needs to deal with them, and coming to the place where we're willing to pray for them to be blessed. I think there's such a deeper understanding of forgiveness that we need to have, that I felt like this was an important book. Of course, it's a picture book, so it's not like a sermon and preaching and all that, but we do touch a little bit on some of those things in the story as Izzy is exploring her own feelings, and there's a lot of humor in there. And, all my books have a little bit of humor. So that one I'm really excited about. And when I sell them in person, we have little yellow notebooks to sell with it that they get with the book, because her little yellow notebook is where she keeps track of all the things her brother does and makes her angry. She tells her mom, I've forgiven him at least 500 times. Jesus says to forgive 70 times 7. Can I stop forgiving him now? And so then she changes her notebook for another purpose. So that's why we're doing the notebooks with the book. That one I'm very excited about. And like I said, it should be here any day now. Then I have my other picture book, The World of Pancakes. It's been out about a year now. We had our 1-year anniversary recently, and it's just been so much fun. My niece actually illustrated that one, so that was kind of fun. It has all these recipes in the back for the different kinds of pancakes from around the world, which I love that. And we have our favorites from when we lived in Taiwan and stuff like that. I have my grandmother's fry bread recipe in there, and it's just fun. It focuses a little on missions, a little bit on anthropology. I have a page for parents if they're wanting to bring cultural teaching with their kids, whether they homeschool or not, just as an extra thing, how you can really do that and what aspects of culture we talk about. So that's in there as a parent page. But the story itself is about flexibility, trying new things, and appreciating differences, appreciating that even though I love my pancakes, there's other pancakes in the world that are really good too. And it takes Sam a little while to realize that, but he finally realizes that. So that's kind of fun. Then I have brand new, 2 months ago came out, my chapter book, Drandar the Dragon Knight. This book has been in the works for 16 years. It started out as a picture book, and I wrote it for my daughter who has autism. She actually illustrated the book. She's an artist, and I think she did a great job. When I would have the book professionally critiqued, every time they would say, this needs to be a chapter book. And I'm like, I don't know how to write a chapter book. So it took a while to learn how to write a chapter book and figure out how to make it into a chapter book. And I just kept putting it on the back burner because of that. So that's why it took so long. But we're really thrilled to have it out. This book, it's a little bit allegorical because the king tells Drandar he's going to be a great knight in the kingdom and bless the kingdom. He's been prophesied every 100 years there's a dragon that becomes a knight. Well, Drandar is a late bloomer. So when he tries to spit fire, he honks like a goose. So all these geese think he's like their big brother, and they just follow him everywhere. And he's so embarrassed by all these geese honking at him all the time. Then he tries to fly and he can't fly, and he gets really frustrated. This other knight named Seraphina, we have girl knights and boy knights. She is his mentor, and she keeps telling him, you can't just try once. You've got to keep trying, because he would try once, fail, and give up. So there's these themes going through the book of perseverance, believing the king's words, ignoring the lies. There's a person who lies to him throughout the story and discourages him. All these themes are in there, and we took those and made 8 lessons of Bible study for us. We call it the Knight's Code, and to learn what it means to be a knight and to believe the word of God. When our king tells us something, we know it's truth, and ignore the lies of the enemy, and to persevere, to forgive. That's another theme in the story. And then we deal with the armor of God. You have to do that if you're going to talk about knights. So we have that as a companion book for middle schoolers and upper elementary who maybe are doing their quiet times by themselves for the first time. We offer videos on my website for free for each of the Bible story lessons, and that's kind of fun. Let's see, my 2 most popular books, and they've both won awards. Building Character Through Picture Books is a devotional where I've taken 25 general market picture books and written a devotional to go along with a theme in that book. That one has sold a lot. That's been my biggest seller. And it's been out a couple years now, maybe 3 years. And we're working on volume 2. We've been working on it a while because I haven't had time to just focus on it. I'm still taking requests. If you have a favorite picture book that's a general market picture book, tell me and I'll see if I can write a devotional for it. I figure if I could write a devotional for Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, I could probably find a devotional theme in almost any book. Almost. Then the one I finished last year, I've been working on it for over 2 years, is A Parent's Handbook for Discipleship. This one is 52 devotionals for parents, 52 object lessons to do as a family, and 52 parenting tips to kind of check how our children are receiving what we're teaching, how they're internalizing what we're teaching. Each of the lessons is a verb that we're given in scripture for living the Christian life, like follow, pray, thank God. I even have the verse that says heap coals of fire on someone's head. We talk about that. I did fix because I thought the kids would think that was funny, to fix your eyes and help them understand what that means. It's based on Deuteronomy 6. So that says that wherever we are, if we're at home, we're teaching our kids. If we're on the road, we're teaching our kids. We're supposed to teach our kids all the time. So I have some of the lessons that are for outdoors, some are indoors. We have one for a rainy day. We have one for while you're doing bath time, dinner time. So in the back of the book, we have an index that tells you which lessons go with where you're going to be that day, or when you decide you're going to do your discipleship. So those are my books. I have one more that's a little one that I don't have on my website. It's only available when you see me in person, and it's called Origami Bible Stories. I took several Bible stories from an animal's perspective in the story and wrote these fun little short Bible stories. Then I have the scripture so they can read the real Bible story. But then we have an origami animal or object to go with the story, and we give them origami paper to go with it too. So that's been a fun one. I've almost sold out. We've got to print more of those. It's just been a fun one that we have on the side. Then the other thing that I have that I'm really excited about too is we're thinking of calling them D squared. They're discipleship decks, and they're little card decks that have conversation starter cards dealing with discipleship. So you have at the dinner table or the breakfast table, whenever you do your family Bible time together, once a week, you pick a card and you read the front of the card, which asks a question. And then the back of the card gives an explanation, a Bible verse, and a challenge. We have those that are coming out. The first deck we have out now is on the fruit of the Spirit. And the second deck we'll have out will be the one another's to go with our whole one another thing. So that's a lot, but that's everything that's been going on and all the books and items we have for sale that I just am thrilled to offer families. Everything comes back to discipleship. So,
I love that. I love that. So you're not busy at all, I think is what
no,
people are probably picking up
I'm
from this
so bored.
conversation. Lots of free time, lots of lounging. So I have one more question to finish up our celebration of 300 episodes, and that is, what are you currently reading?
Oh gosh. Okay. Here's what I do. I have a book in the car that I read while my husband's driving. I don't read while I'm driving. I did have a professor in seminary who read while he drove in LA traffic because you sit like a parking lot for so long. So he would actually read while he was driving. And I thought one day we're going to hear that he's in a wreck or something. But I have one I read while he's driving. I'm reading, it's by a friend from college, Hensworth Jonas. He's an amazing pastor who is from Antigua, and it's called Radical Discipleship. It's been really interesting because it's a very heavy book. I mean, it's a very little book, but he deals with heavy theology, and that's just always fun. Whether you agree, disagree, or what. I love reading that kind of stuff because I can go, well, I disagree with this, I agree with this, whatever. That's why I love C.S. Lewis too, because he makes me think. He makes me really analyze theology and do I agree with him or not? And there's lots of times I don't agree with C.S. Lewis, but he's my favorite author. Another one I'm reading at home, because I always have one by my bed, is Letters for Exiles. It's called Faithful Living in a Faithless World by Andy Lamberton. He's Irish, and it's kind of like screw tape letters in a way, just because it's letters, not because it's demons talking to each other. He took on the persona of a mentor for Daniel, and he's writing letters to Daniel while Daniel's in exile. I love it because it makes us think of that we are exiles living in this world. It goes along with another book I've been reading, When Culture Hates You by Natasha Crane. I haven't gotten into it yet because I've been focusing on these other books, but it's also on my nightstand to read, but I've read just the intro of that one. But I think that's something that I really want to read and prepare because that's something we need to talk about on the podcast. That's something we need to talk about with our kids and in our churches because we are living in a culture that is more and more hostile towards our faith. And I'm going to be in a country that is not Christian. We're moving to Thailand. We lived in Taiwan for 15 years. Same thing. It was not Christian. It was not hostile towards Christians, but when you're in different parts of the world, they are. So you have to know what you're getting into. I think when God told us to count the cost, he was very serious about that. So we need to count the cost and decide to, hopefully, decide to stay faithful and to follow. So these are the books I'm reading right now. I don't read light reading. I always pretty much read nonfiction and, like this one's fiction, but it's still truth.
That's lovely. Well, I'm so glad we got a chance to learn more about you, and I look forward to checking out all of your books, and I hope that you feel encouraged that after 300 episodes, you're doing so great and carrying on and helping so many families.
I hope so. Thank you. I hope to continue until God just says stop. So far, we hope to continue even while we're in Thailand. So it's going to be fun.
Great.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you interviewing me and being here. It's kind of weird being on the other side, but thank you. Thank you for spending time with us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. We sure had fun recording it and talking together. I appreciate Kristin and her questions. I just am so thankful that we've been able to do this podcast, that God has allowed me to write the books I've dreamed of writing since I was 7, 8 years old. It's just a dream come true for me. And so I thank you for being here. I thank you for supporting this ministry and the work that we're doing. And I thank Kristin for a great interview. I want to let you know about our discipleship coaching groups. These are for parents, and one meets once a month, one meets twice a month. I know that a lot of my followers are homeschool families, but I know some of you are not. And I want to let you know that we have coaching groups for you too. We want to help equip and empower parents and encourage parents to disciple their kids. So if you are dealing with discipleship questions, discipline questions, because the two go hand in hand, or any other questions you have about parenting and raising your kids, we say raising them in Babylon because we really kind of are in an exile of sorts here as our world is becoming less and less Christian and more anti Christian. Maybe you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Maybe you could use some encouragement. These groups are, like I said, once a month or twice a month. They're on Zoom, so anyone from anywhere can join. In the groups, we have a time of answering your questions. So you send your questions to me a week in advance or a few days in advance. We prepare a strategy or an answer. And the reason I have you send them ahead of time is because sometimes I have to do research. If I have a question I know nothing about, I'm going to talk to my team, I'm going to do research and come back and we're going to discuss it together. Then you have time for some follow-up questions. We're going to be in groups with like-minded parents who are going through the same things you're going through, who are struggling with the same things you're struggling with. We all want to see this next generation fall in love with God and serve Him with all their hearts. So we're all on the same page with that. And so we're just trying to help each other. So if you're interested in that, you can attend a free session or observe a free session to see if it's something you think would be beneficial. The other thing we do in these groups is we have prayer partners. So if you're in the middle of the week and something's come up and we aren't having a meeting for another week or two, you can email or text your prayer partner and be sure that you're praying together for each other and encouraging each other that way. We also have parenting challenges in the group. So different things that we can do as parents to promote the opportunities for discipleship. They're not meant to be overwhelming or so time consuming that you can't do them. I know all of our lives are busy, whether you're homeschooling or not. Life is busy. So we want to successfully minister and disciple our children in the nooks and crannies of life, just like in Deuteronomy 6, when we're on the road, when we're at home, when it's bedtime, when we're at dinner, we're discipling our kids. How can we do that? What does that look like? When should we start? How can we make sure it's working? How can we disciple children of different ages and stages? Should I start discipling even though my child has not yet become a Christian? These are all questions we work on and try to answer and clarify, and in the process, encourage each of us in our walk with God. So I want to let you know those groups are available. You can go to my website and sign up, or if you just have a question, post a question in the comments or email me through the contact on my website. And my website is terriehellard-brown.com. You can pretty much find everything there and link from there for anything else. There are videos on YouTube you can watch about discipleship as well. We have a private group in Facebook that you can join called Everyday Discipleship Every Day. Doesn't cost a thing, and you can ask questions there as well. But if you want that personalized opportunity to meet in a group and have that support that you may be lacking, I highly encourage you to check out our coaching groups. I will have the links in the show notes so you can easily find that and connect there. And of course, as always, most of all, we pray you feel empowered, equipped, and encouraged to walk by faith and to embrace everyday discipleship every day with the people in your life.